Maybe. There it is. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Matt Report podcast. Got another special episode for you today. This is an impromptu sort of live session, so you get a chance to listen in live. I'm recording from the co-working space that I've been a part of here in South Coast, Massachusetts, just south of Boston. It's called Groundwork. It's awesome. Little plug. I feel like Jason Calacanis on This Week in Startups. You know, my own little studio here. It's pretty amazing. So anybody in my area, do check out Groundwork. And in fact, if you are in my area, anywhere between Providence, Rhode Island, and Boston, Massachusetts, we have our first South Coast WordPress meetup last week. It was phenomenal. There was like 20 people that showed up, and I was floored with the amount of people. We're voting on the next topic. Just go to meetup.com, search for South Coast WordPress Meetup, and you'll find us. And if you're in my area, we'd love to have you here. It's an awesome, awesome event. Today, and the sun is moving. This is all dynamic. So the sun is moving. I might have to shift my laptop a little bit. But today, we're going to talk about JavaScript and WordPress, and what does it mean for your WordPress business? Do you start to go and hire JavaScript developers? Do you learn JavaScript on your own if you're a solo freelancer or a business owner? What does that all mean? And we have two amazing guests. I think they were in a cage match at one point, right? Just battling it out of the best JavaScript educational courses. And we're going to talk to them today. One of them is having internet issues, unfortunately. That's Wes Boss. Wes, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you.
There might be a.
So you want me to introduce myself?
No, not yet. We're going to go to Zach. Those were my show notes. So I apologize, Zach.
Sorry.
Zach Gordon. You are well known. Not that Wes isn't well known, of course, but you are well known in the WordPress world, the WordCamp hallway track, as it were. Welcome to the program, sir.
Hey, thanks so much. Excited to be here. And hi, Wes, too. Good to see you. Good to be on with you.
Hello.
Good to see you.
I just waved to no one.
Good to see your avatar.
Yeah, it is.
Zach, you've made a slight pivot in your career so far. Why don't you tell folks what you're up to these days?
Sure. Well, I am up to primarily working on a JavaScript for WordPress master course. That is my full-time work right now, and it's a pretty intense one. I think a lot of folks know me from teaching at WordPress before that. I did a wonderful 3 or so years there, some 20, 30 courses on intro to WordPress, just how to get up and running to be a power user, and then WordPress development, so how to build themes up into how to build a plugin, and it's been really cool. I travel to a lot of WordCamps and get to meet a lot of folks out there and oh my gosh, man, I learned how to build WordPress from you. I got a job now. It's so fun and cool. But before that, I used to teach in the classroom. I was a college professor and a high school teacher before that. And so miss a lot of that in-person interaction. So it's cool to get into the WordCamp environment, the in-person stuff, and get to actually meet people who are just watching videos, and I don't get to watch them back.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so right now I'm working primarily on this JavaScript for WordPress master course over at JavaScript for WP, and I'm sure we'll get more into all of that and what that entails.
For sure. Wes, what are you up to these days?
So I am an independent developer, and I work primarily with JavaScript, and I do quite a bit of WordPress as well. I've been using WordPress for, I counted it the other day, is over 10 years now. So I teach as well. I teach in person here in Toronto, at a place called HackerU, where we have JavaScript courses, and we're teaching a WordPress course right now. And then I've also got some products of my own, both free and paid, and probably most kind of in line with this podcast here is I've got a series called 4 Years, which is sort of aimed at anyone looking to just understand how React works and just really level up their JavaScript skills in general.
That's awesome. And where can folks find that?
That's at reactforbeginners.com.
Nice. Sweet. Gentlemen, I want to set the stage with one of the questions that I received from somebody who's a WordPress business owner. They're a freelancer. They do some WordPress consultation. They build websites for folks. And they have finally come over the speed bump of learning HTML, PHP, and finally getting familiar and comfortable with just editing a WordPress theme. And it took them a couple years, and now all of a sudden, Matt Mullenweg says, "Forget all that, right? Throw that out I want you to learn JavaScript. Is that the case? What are your feelings on the whole sort of curve of this for folks who are listening who are afraid, like, oh my God, I just learned all this stuff. Now I have to go learn JavaScript. Is this going to come fast? Like, how do you see this whole thing unraveling? And Zach, we'll go to you first.
Wow, yeah, great question. Well, first of all, let's remember that he didn't give the homework assignment till an hour into that talk, and it was after talking about how important PHP is and how it's not going anywhere. So I think where we are is like there have been a lot of people that have been pioneering the field of JS development. Guys at Human Made are doing some really cool stuff. There's a lot of examples around, and a little plug for Day of Rest next week. That's going to be a cool conference to see. So there's been some pioneers, and I think that this homework assignment was a push for like 50% or 60% of the rest of the developers to just like get in it, understand what it is, begin to start experimenting and building. But I think that we still have some time before we really start seeing a complete rewrite of all the plugins and passing stuff differently to the point where you really have to know JavaScript to just be able to work with WordPress. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets there, but I think that begin learning the JavaScript and it's coming, but you don't need to abandon the stuff for your day job unless you're one of those niche agencies, and maybe you do really need to, like, okay, now is the time, build up your full stack developers to go after those cooler projects.
Yeah. Wes, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that I said earlier that I've been doing WordPress for about 10 years, and about 5 years I sort of took a look at it, and I realized that like JavaScript it's not going anywhere, and it's starting to really pick up momentum. We're seeing it on the server and the client. We're seeing it isomorphic, which means it will run anywhere. And I think that it is really time to double down. Obviously, PHP and your WordPress themes aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon. That stuff moves pretty slowly, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. But I really just see that the gap between people that create with WordPress is really widening. Like on one hand, you have like theme tweakers, people who will buy a theme, slap a couple plugins on, change the curtains, and you're done. And then on the other hand, you've got people that create these totally custom experiences with it. And I think that the lower end of that is starting to be replaced with like really good themes and really good plugins. And then the higher end of that is people are asking for these really nice experiences. People are asking for the ability to interact with your website, for them to run really quickly, and for the users to, to interact with it. So I think that obviously you should start looking at it now. You don't have to drop everything and start rewriting it in JavaScript, but I think in the next 3 or 4 years, you're going to start to see, especially if you're in client services, you're going to start to be getting these questions from your clients to be like, well, this is what we want, and these other websites do it, and you can't tell them, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that in PHP, because at the end of the day, they need a website experience.
Yeah. Well, so let's put on our predictions hat, the future predictions hat, if we could hop in a DeLorean and jump 10, 15 years from now. One of the things I'm very interested in, and I know a lot of the people listening who have these small boutique agencies, is where will JavaScript take my business, right? So one of the things that I'm interested in, and Wes, you were just alluding to, is I can now begin to offer up the more traditional app solution with WordPress, or connecting to other apps that organizations that we service might have built or are planning on building. So I'm liking it for that potential. Are there other potentials that you might see? And Zach, we'll go to you first. Are there any potentials that businesses should be sort of hoping for or kind of predicting along the way?
Yeah, well, I think something kind of related to this is that we're going to get into a really sweet hotspot of folks rewriting a lot of functionality that existing plugins solve, but doing it in a way that's maybe a React component, or maybe that's just passing the data itself, or opening up more endpoints so that someone can work with the data of a plugin differently in their theme, maybe just with JavaScript. So I think that we're like officially now, it's already started, like that's begun, and there's a huge opportunity for folks that maybe are already on the bandwagon of learning JavaScript and have some of this down, or do want to commit that's a huge business opportunity, I think, and a lot of folks are rewriting some of their bigger plugins to take advantage of this direction. So just one little thought on that
Sure.
that came to mind.
Sure, Wes. What about you? Do you see anything more traditional app creation with WordPress? Or
I think that I don't really like to use the word app because generally people that are building with WordPress aren't building apps. They're not building like FreshBooks or something that you log into and manage it. They're building content-based sites, right? And they need someone to log into the back end and to put all their content in and then to display it on the other end. And what's happening is that the amount of data that we're showing on these websites, the interfaces that we're using to display all of this data is getting pretty complicated. And users are wanting to be able to filter. They're wanting to be able to have real-time data. They're wanting to be able to quickly jump in between different screens of data without having to wait for a full reload or whatnot. So I think that if anyone's coming from this at a boutique, you got to think about it as my interfaces in my applications are starting to be a little bit more complex. And in order to provide a really nice experience, we're going to need JavaScript to do that.
Sure. Can I throw out the $1 million argument of which I've heard at least in my circles before is, well, we can build FreshBooks with WordPress. What are your thoughts on that and in the direction that this is all headed?
Yeah, you can do anything with WordPress. It doesn't mean you should. I absolutely love WordPress, but it's not an application framework. It's like you can kind of go there with it's a store framework. People have built stores on top of it, but if you're trying to build like an actual application, I would probably recommend using some other framework for that. I think WordPress is great for content-based sites.
Yeah.
What I do see though is more folks exploring, because we have this kind of interesting ecosystem of like the whole JavaScript world and then the WordPress community within that and how it works with JavaScript and building apps. And so I think we will see some more of the kind of niche, like maybe doing a little bit of a custom admin or a custom front end, especially if you're dealing with niches and doing that kind of extra work would really help your client workflow and them on their sites.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the biggest benefits to this whole JavaScript and WordPress thing is not necessarily going to be the front end, but it's going to be the back end. Think of all the amazing interfaces that we're going to be able to create for hockey teams wanting to schedule ice time, or dentists wanting to, like, things like that, where you can make awesome interfaces with JavaScript now that we have this API.
Sure. One of the particular challenges, and something that this is the part where you both go, why did I sign up for this? Why did I agree to do this podcast? One of the crazy things that I've been saying for quite some time for folks who follow me is this thing of fragmentation, right? The idea of experiencing WordPress as we do today, front end, back end, post, pages, the dashboard, the traditional admin dashboard as we know it. And it's so challenging for folks, as easy as it is, it's still challenging for the average user first getting onboarded to WordPress, or even the experienced one who just doesn't live in it like we do. Yeah. One of the things that I'm particularly paying attention to, afraid of, is like early days of Android. Samsung had their Android, LG had their Android versions, and there was this fragmentation, and people were just like, boy, this is just terrible. Like, Android is awful. But they're experiencing it because different manufacturers did things. And that's one concern of mine with this, with what we were alluding to, like these maybe not full-fledged apps, but this mini app, this whole new experience where people might say, God, WordPress was awful to use, but it's not WordPress's fault. It's the author of that mini app. What do you think about fragmentation? Even to the point, and I'll just throw this in, I know it's a long question, even to the point where I think it was brought up in Matt's State of the Word, where we might not even know the download count anymore or the adoption rate of WordPress, because it is just becoming this, basic words, it's just becoming this database, this back end, and everything else is driven by JavaScript in the front end. What are your thoughts on that crazy, put on your aluminum tinfoil hat? And
It's
a good get you sideways question.
Yeah.
Wes, you want to take that?
I don't know. So what do you mean by like I'm not totally sure I understand what the fragmentation means.
So the fragmentation would be to experience WordPress, like you don't even know it's WordPress.
Oh yeah.
But then you do find out it's WordPress, and maybe the custom or the user experience wasn't so good. And they go, well, that ran on WordPress, and they're like, oh God, WordPress is awful, right? Jeez, that was terrible, right?
Yeah.
That kind of fragmentation, or to the fragmentation of it just scaling to something that it isn't anymore. It's kind of a weird way to look at it, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is kind of exciting because you standardize the back end and you have this really nice interface for being able to manage your data, and on the front end you just create whatever it is that you need to be able to pull in. And the beauty of something like React is that you're going to be able to be creating components. You're not going to be creating entire systems to handle things. You're going to be creating like a graph component or a display component or a user component, and then people can pull in and piece together these little components and then create your own components as you need to. So I think the ideal is that we all standardize on web components. We don't even have to standardize on React, but it doesn't seem to be going that way just yet. So if we can all standardize on React components, or at least the WordPress ecosystem, we'd be able to share things with one another.
Yeah, I think that we're in a stage of exploration, and you make a really good point that like they've done a lot of good work to the back end to make it what it is, and hopefully we'll learn some lessons in building that and extending it and doing different things in it. But the WordPress community, I don't necessarily see everybody going out and building their own backend. Like, these are the projects I've been playing around with for the course, and like it's a ton of work, and I don't necessarily advise it. And we also tend to like install plugins or use other people's code, and I think early on even some of the fragmentation we're going to see is going to be like when jQuery UI first came out and all of the calendar pickers look the exact same on every website because everybody's using that. So like when people are writing these React components and using them in the WordPress community, and then we start using them more and more, I think we're actually going to see some similarities there, especially as, like I said, if there are plugin developers out there trying to produce this stuff and get this stuff out so that other people can reuse components and bits and pieces, then we may see some even more similarity because we're just, de facto kind of standard develops. But the fragmentation is a funny one, and I really think that I like being able to cater things for customers. When I did client work, I was all about trying to tweak the back end a little bit, whether it's hiding things or making stuff easier to access. So I like that experience. And yeah, there's still some themes and plugins out there that you install and they just look whack inside of WordPress. So we'll probably see some of that, but honestly, I don't know how much more it will really be, because the people that are implementing this hopefully have some idea about design. Don't just learn JavaScript, learn UI too.
Yeah. One last listener question that came in, and then I want to talk about where we can actually begin to learn this stuff and how you both feel the best method of that is. But so one of the things was, well, this whole the Calypso sort of framework platform idea project, but more specifically the native app that Automatic launched. What are your thoughts on that to a self-hosted WordPress site? And do you think that we'll continue to see, because this is a real question that came in, is do you think we'll continue to see the concepts of plugins as we know them versus going to like some kind of native app to control your WordPress experience, and you're not uploading a zip file to your website anymore, it's just everything is kind of controlled into this native app? What are your thoughts on the whole native app thing for hosted and the hosted WordPress experience?
I'll go first. I think it's pretty cool.
And I'm going to move.
Sorry?
I'm going to move this out of the scene.
Matt's leaving.
Yeah,
that question.
I think it's pretty cool. So if anyone's like listening and doesn't know what that is, essentially what WordPress did is they just took their WordPress.com login screen and they wrapped it in this thing called Electron, which allows you to have like a website in your dock. So and it sort of gives you, I don't know, like a little bit of a nicer authoring experience, because you're not just in a tab on your browser, you're actually in an app on your desktop, even though it's running on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript at the end of the day. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how they push past that. If they don't let us put in admin interfaces, then it's a stop. There's no way that we can use that because how are you going to let your user edit their custom fields and their custom post types? But if we are able to extend that with our own, then yeah, that'd be a really nice authoring experience.
Yeah, my thoughts on this are, I think that Calypso was in a big way like a step forward to pull all of the rest of the folks along with us, giving an example of what can be done. I don't really know that it will, with its current maybe code base and as is, really become the next platform, except that we'll learn a lot for it or with it, and it'll be a reference, people building off of it. Yeah, I don't know how much that's really going to be like a full app and no plugins anymore. I still see, like, if anything, like trying to make plugins more a part of the API and make that work even better is going to be the direction than locking it down. But I don't know where Calypso's going to go. I think it's exciting and it's cool, and I've been playing around with it. But I think it's like a one-step stop, and then we're going to see 2 or 3 more coming along. Too. I think too, if it had a chance, like all the people that have been working on it had a chance to start over and then do it again, like there's just so much learning that's happening right now with a lot of folks, myself included, but even the pros in this field too share this. So I think we still have some more to learn in how this is all going to work and expand and interact.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, let's get into, now that we've sort of predicted the future, we're all going to be rich because of it. Let's move on to where can folks learn about this stuff, or what should the first thing that they start to learn about JavaScript? Is it React? Is it native app building? Is it using frameworks? Like, what is it? And Zach, I'll throw it to you first. Aside from just going and purchasing your course, where can folks...
I mean, I recommend reactforbeginners.com. It's a good place. So, good question. Start at the beginning. Start with the core of the language and go up from there. I think a lot of the main audience, I think, of who this is hitting, of go forth and learn JavaScript, are really the folks that are already kind of pretty familiar with PHP. They probably didn't learn it through a CS degree. They probably learned it just by hacking into WordPress, which is how a lot of us, myself included, learn PHP. So for these folks, it's like the N+1 language learning. So they already know some of the basics, and it's going to be brushing up and learning on some of those like intermediate to advanced concepts, the things like how this works, binding, scope, closures, event handling, and these things that can be a bit finicky and tend to be a little bit different than just working in the PHP server environment. So where I see like the immediate step for most people now is just kind of getting past that superficial level and getting that one step a little bit deeper. And some of the resources I really like for this are You Don't Know JS, the book series. It's free. You could get it on GitHub. You Don't Know JS, and like Functional JavaScript, and there's some other good books and resources. And just in reading a little bit for a couple hours, you could make that shift, and that's a pretty important shift as you get into building more complex things. So that's kind of where I see those first steps. Maybe I could toss it to Wes, because I know you have some more experience working with the frameworks and JavaScript in general. And also go take Wes's courses. Take mine when it comes out, but he has a lot of good stuff too already, and some good articles and stuff on ES6 and the module development and all that kind of stuff. So.
Oh wow! Thanks. I'll pay you later. I get this question a lot from people, and I like to tell people you can worry about a framework, but these frameworks are always going to change. So don't find yourself investing your entire career into a specific framework. Find yourself in investing in JavaScript, and how you learn that is really, really up to your personality. So I would definitely say, first of all, take a look at yourself and try to figure out how you learn best. Because for me, I just can't read articles. I can't read books. I'm just really bad at sitting down and reading, and it just glosses over, and I see these diagrams with arrows and stuff. And for me, it's just that I just build a lot of stuff and just figure it out. So what I like to do is I've just got tons and tons of little demos. Whenever I see a fun little I don't know, see a fun little demo on a website or a little effect, I try to recreate that in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And what framework should you use? It doesn't matter. Whatever allows you to get it done and whatever doesn't get in your way. Usually I'll just start to bang things together with jQuery just so that I can get it up and running in just a couple of minutes, because that lets me have fun and start learning. And then you can always go back and rebuild it to be better and more scalable and all that stuff. But don't let any of that stuff just like get.
Yeah, I want to throw in one quick thing here that I really hope we don't all just like take a bat to jQuery now, because I know that we're shifting out of using it and kind of the Ajax model and just relying on it and its heaviness, but like it's still a really great framework and it's still like good to know and very helpful to work with. And I just don't want us to like now be like, oh, it has to be a pure JavaScript and just like we're back, take that jQuery, you're dead.
Yeah.
Because that there is a little bit of that going on. But yeah, like you said, like it's choose the right tool for the job. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I teach a part-time JavaScript class here in Toronto, and how we do it is we start off with JavaScript and making sure that you actually understand what the difference between a function and a method and an argument and all these things are. And once you got a solid understanding of those, we move into to learning jQuery, because it helps you learn and understand what the DOM is and what nodes are and how you can update them and how you can interact and listen for clicks and whatnot. And you get a really good understanding. And then once you understand JavaScript and that how there's events and nodes in the DOM and everything, then you can move to any framework. Like how long did it take me to pick up React in my first ever React app? It was just a couple hours, because I just searched, how do I do a click in React? How do I update text in React? And then you start to learn the sort of the things that are React-ish behind there. But the core of it is just JavaScript at the end of the day.
So like a user that, or a beginner in this arena, as you guys were chatting back and forth, I Googled what is the best JavaScript framework, and I came across an article. I came across an article from some folks that I actually know, Lullabot. They're a Drupal agency right next to me. And they have a nice comparison here. And one of the things that they've shown is a Google trend chart of Backbone, Angular, Ember, and React. And it just shows an exponential growth of Angular popularity, or at least in terms of Google trends. I think this is Google Trends, yeah. You know, you sort of hinted at it. It doesn't matter which framework you're using, but I mean, is this, for the person who doesn't know, are these frameworks like Drupal versus WordPress? You know, is this the same kind of thing, or is it much different?
Yeah, I look at, like, obviously people will talk you blue in the face how React is a library and Angular is a framework, but like at the end of the day, yeah, you generally pick one of them and you build your website with that one. So like, you know how like Drupal is sometimes better for certain kind of websites, and WordPress is a little bit nicer because it comes a little bit more batteries included. That's sort of like Angular versus all these other frameworks that we have out there.
Nice. You know, we started chatting about the learning aspect of it, and to sort of start small, and again, like, don't worry about the framework, because you might pivot or choose something else later on and scale it or what have you. I deal a lot with doing mentorships or you know, small part-time like summer jobs with kids that are in high school, and they want to pursue you know, become either engineers or web developers and the like. Many of them are still in the school system, educational system, at least where I'm at. They're still teaching sort of HTML and the basics of HTML. You know, could somebody just come into the world of web development fresh with learning JavaScript and learning how to handle these things, or is it better to learn these sort of, you know, I'll call legacy fundamentals that I grew up building in the late 90s, HTML and then CSS and all that stuff? You know, is there a base fundamental knowledge that somebody should have, or can we create web developers straight out of high school learning JavaScript?
Yeah, I think it's actually possible to leapfrog it. And you know, I taught high school, and we had a four-year web design program, and it was a really cool thing. And seeing what the potential for the students is, and whatever point we came into web design, there was something that was outdated. And I think that it is possible now to just start with like the modern JS workflow and find work and start contributing, and everybody else is going to kind of be looking to, and you figure out, what you have to learn, some of what the antiquated models are. I don't want to even call them antiquated yet, but you pick that up as you go along. I think for someone just like maybe career transitioning in, that's not coming out of high school or super passionate and staying up all night for days on end, that it still is kind of possible. It's definitely possible in the web development world, and I think you can make a way as a niche just within the WordPress world, in part just because Matt gave this homework assignment now, and that's so visible. But that said, I think for the average person going to even be a junior web developer right now, you got to know how to build a PHP WordPress theme and understand these mechanics, because even when you get to building JS stuff, you still need to know some of the underlying architecture. So you're going to have to pick that up, but you don't need to that be your primary way of entering into this.
Sure.
Yeah, I think back to when I first started learning to code, and the excitement that when I was in school learning to code was really what drove me forward. And what was that? It was really just the feedback that I got. So typing in some HTML and then using some CSS, especially now that you've got really fun hover transitions, that just got me really hooked on it, because I would put it up and show it to my friends. And I think really that's all that matters at the end of the day. You're not going to be yelling at a grade school kid that his functions are impure or he's not properly using immutable or something like that, because they don't care about that. It's just they don't want to be coders, they want to be creators, right? It really just goes back to playing with Legos and things like that. If you're the kind of person who likes to make things, then yeah, start them with HTML, CSS, and then as you get more serious about it, you can pick up JavaScript.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I want to sort of wrap up the discussion with what you feel the I guess the best process to continue on with. You've got your first sort of hello world app out there, or you're feeling fairly confident with JavaScript. Where does one level up to the next step? Is it just taking on projects? Is it hooking into? This is for like a freelancer, by the way. Is it hooking into the jobs board at WordPress? Like any insight into once you're comfortable, where do you go next?
Yeah, I think go in over your head. That's really how I've learned things. It's just promise stuff that you don't really know. Like go like 20% over your comfort level, and you can figure it out. You can figure it out from there. That's really gonna help you out. In terms of like resources, there's so many books. I have a blog post that has a list of like 30 different resources, books and video tutorials and things like that. But really just get a project and then see it all the way through, because especially if it's a paid project, you're going to figure it out when money's on the line.
It's true.
Yeah, I was wondering how to answer that, so I'm just going to +1 Wes there and say do that, because otherwise it just won't happen, especially for that freelancer kind of environment. Yeah. And the other thing to remember is, like, I think a lot of people that are hearing about, I need to learn like React and Angular now. Like, you don't need to drop everything that you're doing and build something completely with one of these frameworks. They can be used inside of your current themes or plugins or projects. So if you want to add more interactivity or stuff like that, the components and things like that, the UI, try to use Angular or React and implement that into a project, and don't think like, I need to start from scratch and this whole thing is built with JavaScript and I don't know any, so don't freak out. Like, it's just kind of like how you would add jQuery, just a little bit more going on. So
yeah, you can sprinkle it in. That's a really good point. And like an example is like if I've got my existing website, and I had an existing website that was HTML, CSS, and I wanted to add in a video player, so people could have a playlist of my videos. They click them, and then it would show them. So I just built that video player. The video player is the only React thing on the entire website. It's just a piece of the website. The rest of it's just your regular whatever CMS you're using behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, that is the perfect answer. Sort of what I was looking for there. That's great, gentlemen. This has been amazing. Information overload for me, and I'm sure folks who have sent in questions for this particular topic is going to get some great stuff from it. Zach, where can folks sign up and get your goods?
Yeah, come sign up over at JavaScript for WP. We have this great newsletter that's going out behind the scenes, and I'm sharing all these tips from advisors and behind-the-scenes projects, and the course will be out with WP 4.5. So when Core rolls out the API, this course will be coming with it. So go sign up for updates over at JavaScript for WP, and you can follow me on Twitter at zgordon.
Awesome. And Wes, how about you?
Can I plug everything?
You can plug it all. You can plug your Ember
Everything.
course, your Backbone course. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't have those. But okay, so I'm at WesBoss, WESBOS on Twitter, and you can find my React series at reactforbeginners.com. But I've also got a Flexbox series, which is free, flexbox.io. I've got a command line user. If you're kind of scared of using the command line, especially because React makes you use the command line to compile this stuff, commandlinepoweruser.com. And then I've got a book and video series on Sublime Text if you want to level up there at sublimetextbook.com.
All right, everybody else, it's mattreport.com, mattreport.com/subscribe. That's where you can join the mailing list and stay connected. I have not sent one email in about 3 months, but I promise that I'll have some summary notes going out fairly soon. That's mattreport.com/subscribe. And as always, we'd love a 5-star review. If this is the kind of information that you enjoy for your WordPress business, you can search for us on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Again, you don't even have to write a line of text. You just hover over the 5 stars, click it, and that would be amazing. It helps us get found. Till next time, everybody, thanks for joining.
See ya.
Thanks for having us, man.